Now, there continues to be hope for the search of a vaccine, especially with what we're hearing from the United States. Vaccines possibly out by the end of this year or next year. That is a highly accelerated process of finding a vaccine. So just what does it take to develop one? Well, before you even begin to think of developing one, the first step that you do is understand the disease, understand the natural history of the infection. How does it infect the body? Which part does it go to? How does it cause disease? Do people recover or do they not? You want to understand which part of the virus elicits a response in humans that is a protective response, or what is known as an immune response. You want to know which part of that virus will elicit that response, and therefore which part you will target when it comes to the vaccine. So once you have discovered all of this, you then go ahead to make some sort of prototype, okay? You put together some chemicals, some drugs together that is a potential vaccine. Now, once you have done that, you begin the process of development. Now, the first stage is what is known as the preclinical stage. And at this point, you are testing it on animals before you even get to human beings. So two of the most used animals in the studies, the preclinical studies, are mice and monkeys. So I'll first start off with the mice, for example. They're used because they're small, they mimic the human response, and what you're doing at that stage is you are testing for safety and an immune response. You're trying to see if it'll have any adverse effects, like, you know, does it cause sleepiness, drowsiness? Does it in fact adversely affect other operations of the body? From there, you then go to monkeys. That's now a step further, okay? Because monkeys are very similar, or primates, if you like, are very similar to human beings. So once you have tested it on animals, you have said it is safe, you have said it indeed induces an immune response, then what do? You subject them to challenge studies. Now, the challenge studies, this is what happens. You've already given the animal a vaccine. You then expose it to the virus to see whether the vaccine does indeed provide protection rather. So you have all of this. All is good at this stage. It is safe. It provides a good immune response. You put together all of your data. And one thing to remember is that there is regulation and ethics at every single stage of the process of developing a vaccine. Okay? So you put together all your data. You take it to the regulator in your country. Here it could be KEMRI. In the United States, it's the CDC, it's the FDA, that's the Food and Drug Administration. You take it to them. They say, okay, good. It looks like you are onto a good thing. Then they allow you to develop a vaccine now for human beings. And that's where you now get to now the clinical stages, and that is testing in human beings, all right? Now, if you take a look at what happens in human beings, phase 1, you have typically few human beings volunteers, about 20 to 40 humans that you are testing this on. And remember, here you are primarily looking at safety. Basically, is the product safe in human beings? In other words, does it cause less harm than actually good? All right? That's what you want. You're looking for any adverse reactions, like we said. You know those little inserts you have in your drug boxes and things like that that says, don't take this with alcohol, or if you take this, it'll cause drowsiness, that sort of thing. That is what they're actually looking for. Now, that one has a small number of people. It's about 20 to 40 people, and you are following them for up to a year. So phase 1 could take a year. You have these people going about their lives but reporting back every month. Okay, so at this point you say, okay, the drug is safe, right? So then from phase 1, you will now move to phase 2. Now in phase 2, you are looking for extended safety. You have about 100 to 200 human beings in this particular study. It is much larger. You are trying to see if there's an immune response in a bigger population. There's also something else you are looking at. You are checking the dosages. So what sort of dosages do you need? 20 milligrams, 50 milligrams? You're also taking a look at the schedule, right? So do people need 1 dose, 2 doses, 3 doses? What's the schedule? Over what intervals? Is it 1 dose every 6 months, 1 dose every month, maybe for 3 months, that'll then provide ultimate protection against that disease? Another thing that they're taking a look at in phase 2 is the route of administration. So how does this drug get into the body? It could be a number of ways. Intramuscular. It could be intradermal, that is into the skin, right? Or it could be subcutaneous, which is underneath the skin. So you're taking a look at all of these things. What is the best mode of administration of the drug that'll give you the best outcome. Now, that process of phase 2, again, could take up to 2 years long. So remember, you're with these 100 to 200 people for 2 years. Now, after you're done with phase 2, again, you are gathering all of your data. Remember, you are looking at your research from phase 1, where you had fewer people, and phase 2. Again, you take that to your regulator and you say, look, all has gone well. This drug seems to be doing exactly what we want it to do. They will take a look at your processes, make sure you have followed each of the procedures, and then they'll tell you you are good to go for the next stage, which is phase 3. Now here, you are talking about a huge number of people. And some of the tests we've heard for COVID-19, up to 30,000 people. Now you can see why this takes a long period of time. Now here, you are checking for a number of things. One, does it actually work in an even bigger population of people? And remember, it is taking a very long time because you are tracking these people again for about a year to maybe another year and a half. Now, what happens is, the reason that would take long, imagine 30,000 people, where you would have to get them. You'd have to, first of all, do full screening. These are people you are following every month. They come in typically every month. They have a full exam, for example, a blood sample. Also, what is happening is you are asking them to record any symptoms or any sickness that they experience. And once they do that, they again come in, even if they've just come in for their monthly physical, and you're checking, are those symptoms related to the vaccine, or could it be something else altogether? Remember, you're checking for safety and whether it causes an immune response. Now, one thing that's important to note at this particular point is the test is randomized. That means one group of, say, the 30,000 gets the actual vaccine and the other gets a placebo. A placebo is basically not the vaccine, so they could just be injecting saline. And at this point, you want to remove bias, particularly with human beings. So they do what is called a randomized double-blind study. Now, it sounds complicated, but this is simply what it means. It means the person who's injecting the recipient with the vaccine and the recipient of the vaccine, both of them don't know whether they're getting the vaccine or whether they're getting the placebo. Right? So that means they would just report all of these things without any bias whatsoever. But of course, there's someone above them who understands who is getting what. All right? So this is taking a long period of time, like we said. We said they're looking for you, they're looking after you month on month. But remember also, these individuals are going about their lives. They could end up, for example, in the case of COVID-19, being exposed to the virus. Remember, CS Mutahi Kagwe says anybody can get it, no matter how careful you could be. They would then take those ones and pay particular attention to see if the vaccine is indeed helping provide them protection even after they get exposed possibly to the virus, okay? So all goes well in phase 3. What do? You unblind the study, which means you now tell everybody what each of them got. All right? Now you're checking, did it work? So let's assume that it does work. You're good. You say, okay, now you are ready to apply for a license to begin manufacturing. Now, it's important for me to state that at every stage, if it doesn't work, you go back to the start. And remember, we've already done 1 year, 2 years, maybe another possible 2. So that's about 5 years, right? So now you're going into the manufacturing stage. And it looks simple, right? All is good, but even here, again, there's regulation. Remember, you applied for a license, and the regulator said, you're good to go. Go ahead for the license. So what are you now doing in the manufacturing stage? Here, you are checking for a number of things. One, can you produce enough doses for the masses? Right? So now we're talking about 100 million doses, for example, for COVID-19. Also, you are taking a look at your distribution channels, right? So how does it get from the factory to storage? That time that it spends there, what is the level of storage? You know, many drugs need to be stored either at room temperature, in a cool, dark place, maybe at 4 degrees, maybe at 0 degrees, or maybe they need to be frozen. So you are checking whether you can manufacture it under good manufacturing practices, GMP. You're checking your distribution channel. So how can it get from the factory to the point of storage, be stored safely in a way that doesn't degrade it, and then to the end user who would then use it and it still remains effective throughout that process. All right? Now, things can fail even at this stage, as far advanced as the process of developing the vaccine is. All right? Another thing they're checking for here is that all-important issue of the cost. So they're trying to see at what rate will they sell it in a way that ensures that they're recouping the costs that have been spent by the researchers and the scientists in coming up with this, right? So you're looking at packaging, what sort of, should it be in a glass bottle, a plastic bottle, all of these things. There's quite a bit that goes into that there. So you come up at this point and you say, oh, you know what, we are well and good. Again, you go to the regulator and they say, okay, this is good to go. And remember now from here, you have determined that you can produce it en masse, you can distribute it, it'll get to the user, that would be you and I, safely, and it would still be effective. And you have determined the price. Okay, so you're good to go. But remember, this is not the end. They continue to check for safety. That 1 in a million sort of reaction. That will definitely continue. Knowledge is always being gathered. Now, it's important to note how many people would be involved in such a process. And we'll get to the cost in a moment, because I know that is a big sticking point. You want to know how much it costs, right? I will get to that, but maybe this will give you an indication. Just take a look at these people who you would need for a study such as this. Virologists, nurses, doctors, laboratory scientists, immunologists, epidemiologists who study the spread of diseases, community workers, those are the ones who will help you get all of those volunteers, up to 30,000 of them in some cases. You want community advisory boards, you want peer groups, the person who will say, I'm in charge of the 100 in my kikundi here, I'm in charge of 100 there. All of those are people who are there. You need finance personnel, and all of these persons require to be paid, all right? Now here, let's discuss that controversy for just a minute, right? When Kenyans said they didn't want to be tested. Top researchers and scientists in this country tell me it is very important to test the vaccine on different populations. For example, vaccines can have different reactions in Africans, in Asians, in people of European descent. In fact, vaccines can behave responsibly, differently, and can issue a different immune response depending on an environment, right? So we're in Africa, we're in mostly a tropical environment, and in the others. So it is important that we take part in it so that we find out whether it really does work in different environmental conditions and for different human races across the world. Here is an example. You think, well, maybe that's hypothetical. But BCG, you know that vaccine, right? It's given at birth for tuberculosis. Apparently, in some communities, it does not elicit any immune response at all. And so that's why it's important for everybody, for Africans, for Asians, for Native Americans, and that sort of thing, to make sure they get tested so we fully understand how it works in the body and what sort of immune response it elicits. All right? And this is why it would be very important for us to participate in one way or another. Okay, so let's get to the issue of how much it costs. So, Kenya is in the process of getting, or trying to work on a vaccine for HIV and AIDS, right? So I'm reliably told that at KAVI, which is the Kenya AIDS Vaccine Institute, the average budget to do a phase 1 study, remember we said phase 1 has between, 20 to 40 people? The average budget for that is anywhere up to 200 million shillings. Now that is just phase 1. You have phase 2. You have phase 3, and then you get to the process of manufacturing, which is phase 4. Now, imagine, the bigger it gets, the more people you are studying, up to 30,000, obviously the more amount of money that you get in. All right, so what's happening with COVID? Because we understand that this whole process could take up to 10 years. In fact, one of the most straightforward vaccines to have been manufactured in the world is the mumps vaccine. Now, the mumps vaccine, which was the most straightforward in terms of its process, took 10 years. So how come with the COVID-19 vaccine, there seems to be an accelerated process? Well, this is what top scientists are telling me. There was already a platform and some work that had begun, remember, on SARS-CoV-1. Remember, COVID-19 is caused by the virus SARS-CoV-2. So they'd already started some work into that. So they're tweaking it to make it, sort of practical for SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. In addition, they are really doing a lot of these studies at the same time. So they're combining phase 1 and phase 2 and doing all of these things at the same time. Here's another thing that makes it a little more accelerated. You see, usually private drug companies are the ones who are putting in all of this money, but right now governments, particularly the US government, is the one that is taking a look at much of the funding. So for example, with the company Moderna, they got about $955 million from the US government to try and develop a vaccine. Pfizer, another company, also got an injection of $2 billion from the US government, and Johnson & Johnson, that is also trying to make a vaccine, got $456 million US dollars. All right, so that is all that investment. But there is hope because there's an Africa consortium which is under the auspices of the African Union that is now being chaired by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa that is putting together funds to try and book some of these vaccines. The US has already booked 100 million doses for one from Johnson & Johnson, another almost 500,000 from Moderna. How much will it cost you when it comes out, which is possibly by the end of the year? Well, Moderna has put its cost at $80 for 2 doses. Okay, so that's about 8,000 shillings. Pfizer is a little cheaper, about half that, about 4,000 shillings. Johnson & Johnson so far is the cheapest at $10 per dose. For 2 doses, that would be about $20. That's roughly 2,000 shillings. But remember, those are costs in the US. Remember what we talked about earlier with the distribution channels? So what would it cost for them to bring that drug from the US to Africa and to a Kenyan country? And you can see there would have to be a markup price at that point. So these are some of the things that are happening with the search for a COVID-19 vaccine. I also need to mention that there's some high-level talks to have some vaccine testing here in the country. So there is hope that possibly this could be available here in the country or on the continent, perhaps soon, but at the cost of 8, maybe 10,000 for a dose, and that is just in the US alone. That is far out of reach for most Kenyans in the country. So when you hear people telling you about scientists in the country doing nothing, remember this is the country where we're hot on the heels of a search for an AIDS vaccine and where possibly some testing for COVID-19 could take place. That's my explainer on COVID-19 vaccine development in the world.